This is the Joe Show, and we have a guest. So Ned is here, Ned Leitner, and he is here demonstrating how much more complicated it is to do television than it is to do radio. He's got 2 cameras set up in the studio, and this is going to be for public access TV, cable TV in Belfast. And I hope maybe Ned's going to be able to find a way to get it on the Rockland public access channel, because that might be interesting to people in Rockland as well.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that, Joe, but that's a great idea. I am on really good terms with the folks who do the public access, or at least run Channel 7 in the Knox County. So I'm sure I'll send it their way, and they would be happy to.
Who are the people who are responsible?
Well, the main people I deal with is a guy named Craig Matheson. He does most of the programming. There's a server that we use, and and we share programming. As a matter of fact, he and I both produce a pet adoption show called Rating Cats and Dogs that is shown in both markets.
Both markets. That's a term from commercial media.
Yeah.
Here at WRFR, we don't think of our audience as being our market, since we're not selling anything. And of course, that's true for you too with cable television, public access cable television in any case. Is that true or not? Do you have ads on public access?
Not really. No, we're a non-commercial station. It's a little, though. You know, we do have underwriters, and I guess
yes. Well, so do we actually. So I guess we should be thinking of ourselves as broadcasting in a market. But anyway, that's not a term.
Yeah.
Well, let me bring our listeners a little bit into the picture here. I did mention at the beginning of the show, but that was half an hour ago. And with radio, you know, the thing is, people come and go as hosts and also as listeners. So perhaps many of the people listening now didn't hear the beginning. So I can explain that Ned Leitner is not only involved with the public access TV in Belfast, but he has been very much involved with a new project in Belfast, which is to bring to Belfast a low-power FM station like WRFR, but different from WRFR, and we're going to find out some of the differences, I hope, in our conversation this morning. One of the big differences is that WRFR is not run by the city of Rockland. And in fact, the history of WRFR is that it was the difficulty in well, this is a whole history, but basically we started WRFR in order to be independent of the city of Rockland. But maybe politics in Belfast are somewhat different anyway. That's going to be an interesting challenge, I think, to figure out what the rules are going to be for programming on. What are the call letters of the Belfast
station?
Well,
you know, we're so early, we haven't even figured that out. We'd like to come up with something clever, but most of the you know, a lot of them, the call letters have been taken, so we're not even at that point. Yes. You know, your point about it being run by the city is only is not quite accurate. The truth of the situation is that we, in the city government, and I say we because I'm employed by the city of Belfast to run their government access channel.
I see. Okay.
We were finding ourselves frustrated by the cable company, which in July decided to put what had been Channel 7 and Channel 2 only available on a digital tier. So all the people who just had the regular, you know, plug-in, no cable boxes were no longer able to see us easily.
Wow. Is that Time Warner?
That was Time Warner.
And they run ours too, so maybe we've got that.
You have the same issue.
Yes.
If you have a modern TV, you can rescan it, and then, you know, our Channel 2 is up on Channel 121 or whatever.
Yes.
So it's not nearly quite as accessible. And many of our older viewers, and let's face it, traditional television viewers tend to be older these days. The younger ones seem to watch stuff on demand more.
Yes, that's what my son does. My 6-year-old son, yes.
Those people tend to be the people who were finding themselves frustrated at not being able to watch their city council meetings. And so one of the members of our community actually contacted City Hall and said that there was a brief window of opportunity to apply for a low-power radio license, and this opportunity, once it passes, may not occur again.
Right.
And so why not?
It's been 12 years, I guess, since the last window. That's what they call it. Yes.
Yeah, and so the city councilor assigned someone in our one of the staff at City Hall to look into applying for a license, and we and she did that and hired an engineer to see if the spectrum space and all the other little things that were available, and we applied and received the license, or the I guess we have up to 3 years to start the station, I guess.
Right.
But it was clear from the onset that the city did not want to really run and operate this station. They just wanted to make sure it happened, and I think they would like to have a nonprofit organization perhaps take over and start it. But but you're right that its germination came from city government, and at this point, the city manager Joe Slocum has been working to try to have a meeting of all those interested in trying to get the ball rolling. As a matter of fact, I think you are going to be our keynote speaker in our first organizational
They told me
meeting.
I was going to go and be a part of something, but they didn't. It didn't confess that I was going to be a keynote speaker.
Well, I don't know if it's a keynote, but you'll be telling us a little bit about your station. And I've come down here to get the community to sort of understand what low power radio is, because one of the things about these hyper local channels such as our public access TV channel is that if you don't live in that community, you may not be aware of what it is all about. So is it okay if I ask you a few questions?
Oh, sure. That was the whole idea, wasn't it, Ned?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you mentioned that you, through frustration with city government, decided to start the station on your own.
Right.
And what did you? What were some of the challenges in getting the station up and going? And things that you would tell people like us that be sure you do this and this so that we.
Well, there was no big challenge. Nobody tried to prevent us from doing it. We had this space available. We're sitting in a converted garage that I happen to own, so we were able to use it, and it's a good studio. There was a lot of learning to do about the equipment. I mean, there was the application itself. The first big challenge for us was that the FCC had been talking about this idea of opening up space for low-power stations, allowing licenses for low-power FM stations, 100-watt stations. And I was curious about it, and every once in a while I would check and see if anything was happening. And then, boom, I happened to check the news, and there it was, that there was a window. The Maine was in the first group of states, so we were the first window. We had 2 weeks to apply, and that was already on us. So like we had 10 days, and we had to do it. So we did it. And then we were lucky because, there's so many things to tell, but nationally, the people who own, this is the basic problem of politics in America today. The people who own the licenses already, which includes the public, NPR and all of the commercial stations, ownership of which is very, very centralized and consolidated. They didn't like the idea that there would be these other stations around, okay? Because like NPR, they want to be the only ones out there saying, send us money. So, and the commercial stations, they don't want anybody. They want people to listen to them, So they came up with all kinds of arguments about how this was going to interfere with them, and so blah blah blah, all kinds of technical arguments, and they got Congress to override the FCC. This is American politics, and greatly restrict the availability of these licenses, so that 9 out of 10 people who applied were rejected because they didn't meet the new requirements that they be 3 channels away from any commercial station out there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we were just lucky because here in Rockland that wasn't an issue. There was room, and in Belfast I'm sure there is room on the dial. What is your frequency? Do you know?
You still catch me up.
All right.
We're not quite
well,
there
anyway,
yet. But I know we have a frequency.
Yeah, well, you do because I know that anyway. So then it was just we had plenty of time to build it. So they gave us our construction permit. It's called, and we worked on it and we built a station. It's really not hard if you appreciate the fact that 100 watts is really not a lot. Your typical
I had a stereo system that had more power than that.
Exactly, and there are lots of people out there into ham radio, and they have 100 watts, 200 watts. It's not a big deal, and we had to find a way to stick up a pole that would get the antenna up off the ground. We got an old telephone pole, a big one, and put that in the ground. And
is that right here?
Yeah, it's right outside. It's just a big old telephone pole, and it has our antenna on the top. The antenna was $100, so it's not it's not a big deal. So there's a wire that goes up there from our studio, and in the studio, in the corner where the wire goes out, there's a transmitter that. Actually, I visited the factory in Italy, in northern Italy. The Italians are leaders in this technology, and so we got the transmitter, we got various equipment. Then there was a little tweaking going on, but I can show you what we've done, and it really is not anything enormously expensive.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. How much money did you think you needed, or did you need, to get the station up and running?
I think it was something in the order of $10,000.
$10,000.
So it's not. It's really not a lot of money. Not for the city of Belfast. You're rich, of course.
Yeah.
But no. But obviously $10,000 isn't a lot. Transmitter can be bought for a couple $1,000. There's other equipment. There's. We're sitting between us as the control board, and I think that we paid a couple $1,000 for this one, and it seems to be working pretty well. Although we've gone through different equipment and so on, but none of it's terribly difficult or expensive.
So bring me back. When was this when you started?
Well, I guess it's 11 years ago now when I first went on the air. Yeah, so it's been a while. We just celebrated. I think it was our 11th. Anniversary because we started on Valentine's Day, and I think it was 2002. No, let's see. Yeah, it might have been. Not
well enough that you probably have the bugs worked out by now.
Well, bugs keep crawling in. But yeah. Well, the technology has changed a lot, and for example, storing audio is now, because everything is digital these days. CDs are on the way out. They're already sort of obsolete because you can put all that information on a chip as well, and those chips are getting cheaper and cheaper. A device, so if you want to go out in the field and record an interview, that's a $50 thing. It has the quality that a $5,000 one had 20 years ago. So, it's getting easier and easier, in fact, to do this kind of thing.
So, what is the format of the station? Do you have community members who are, I don't know if the term DJ is even appropriate anymore.
Well, people say, they say DJs. I tend to use the word programmer, but there isn't really a good name for it, especially when it's not just about playing music. Then you could say DJ, that's disc jockey, right? So, and a CD is a disc, but a lot of our shows are talk shows and so on. We don't really have a name for it, but the people who do the shows, and if you go on our website, which is WRFR.org, you will see all of the people who do shows. Those people have in common only really one thing, and that is that they have been trained, they know how to operate the equipment, and they understand a little bit what the rules are here.
7 dirty words you can't say, things like that.
Well, certainly our rules are you have to abide by the rules of the Federal Communications Commission, and that is certainly meaning that you can't use bad words, which is probably good practice anyway. And also we have our own rules, which basically are about respecting your community. So we have the rule that everyone in our community must be treated with respect. And that's just sort of the fundamental thing, where there's no nasties about, if you want to talk about what a bad guy Hitler was, that's okay, but if you want to talk about somebody who lives in our community, or a category of people who live in our community, for example, homosexuals or Muslims or whatever, you have to do it with respect. That's a basic principle.
It sounds similar to our rules with our public access channel, where we say you're not allowed to have hate speech, as we call it.
Yes.
So, so stepping back a little bit, you said it cost about $10,000 to get started.
Right.
How did you get those $10,000? Did you have?
Well, we had a campaign to raise some money. It didn't cost anything to get the construction permit from the FCC, so I did that with help from a couple of friends, and we got that in, and then we got the construction permit. Then we needed to raise the money, but we had the permit, so we could say we're going to do this. And we had a campaign, we called it the 100 Founders, and you said, okay, you got to contribute $100 and you become one of the 100 founders, and we'll have 100 people contributing $100, and that'll be $10,000. I think I got the math right there. I've been helping my son with his homework in first grade. And we more or less did that. We didn't have any big chunks of money. We had, but we found people quite willing to step up and help found the station that way by giving $100, and that's how we got the money.
So you got the money, but then you needed to get people to program the station. Did you have a vision? Did you say, okay, we're going to be, a country rock? I mean, what you're going to have a certain amount of talk? Was there sort of a programming idea?
No, and that is sort of fundamental. Really, the station, I did have help from other people, but very much I've been, not in recent years it was very different, but in the beginning, it was really my vision, my thing. I did this, and I very much wanted it to be open to everyone. I didn't have this idea that I wanted to design the sound of WRFR and that it was going to be a certain kind of music, or it was going to be no, that wasn't my idea at all. It's a community station. It's for the community. All of the people who do shows are volunteers, and the idea from the beginning was people will do what they want to do. They'll play the music that they want to play, and there isn't going to be some kind of flavor, overall flavor of the radio station. The flavor is freedom, okay?
I got you. Is that what RFR, Radio Free Rockland or something like that?
Well, it could stay, it's just call letters. We got to, those were available letters, and I think that, so RFR could be Rockland Family Radio.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Or Rockland Free Radio, or Radio Free Rockland, or anything you want it to be.
Gotcha. So did you have a lot of people coming out of the woodwork immediately or did you have to recruit people to, how did you get the word out to get the station?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't remember, but it sort of got around that this was happening. We were raising that money, we were publicizing it, and people came forward. There was a little bit of recruiting, I asked, around, and there were some people who had some radio experience who offered to help and to do shows and so on. We have a lot more people doing shows now than we had in the beginning.
How many people do you have involved actively these days?
Well, you can see that on the website. I think it's got to be 30 or 40 people doing shows.
And are you on all the time, or do you go off the air at a certain time?
No, we're on 24/7. and we do that through smoke and mirrors, or through our computer. Mm-hmm. So we have a computer that has more than 5,000 songs. We call it the World in Song, mm-hmm. and that is playing right now, but the volume is turned down. Gotcha. The fader is down. But so if I put this fader up, see, listen.
Actually, I can't hear it in my headphones, but you can.
Yes, well, we're hearing it now. Okay, gotcha. Well, that's what's on the World in Song.
Okay.
That's going, but I have the fader down. So basically, anytime somebody leaves the studio after doing their show, they put that fader up, and
it's on automatic pilot.
It's on automatic pilot, and in fact, at 10 o'clock, which is 9 minutes from now, we're going to have to put that up because our station ID is also done on that automation.
Oh, well, it looks like, according to my little timer here, that's about the time I need to wind up our interview for the TV station. So the station, is it getting programming all locally,
yes.
or do you don't
Yeah, we have done it all.
We've
done it all locally. I know that for example, there's an independent nonprofit station, WERU, in Blue Hill, and they have national programming that they get. I don't know how it arrives there, but there's like this very well liked show. News show.
Democracy Now?
Democracy Now, okay, and that sort of thing. But we don't do that. We do all our own programming. There are one or two shows that people record rather than do live in the studio, but there are people who live right in the community who could very well come in. So we don't have that set in stone, really, but our idea is, we don't need to be a conduit for something else. We are, it's about people here doing their thing, and
well, that's very admirable. I wish I could run our public access TV station with only local content, but
TV is so much more difficult to do, and that's a nice thing to understand about radio, which is that it's relatively very easy. This is a dual interview for people listening. You can't see it, but there are two cameras set up, big cameras on tripods and a couple of lights, and I've got both of us have, Ned and I have a lapel microphone, but for radio, we would just be sitting at this table. There's a microphone between us, and it's just relatively very easy to do.
Well, that's you're being modest in some degree.
Plus, music is a big part of it. Right. So, when I say that we're not bringing programming in, the reality is that the large part of what we do is stuff which is recorded someplace else because it's a music. I was playing this harpsichord music. Nobody played that here in the studio. Right. That was played in Germany by somebody. Okay, so.
So I'd like to ask you a little bit about costs.
Yes.
On an annual basis, how does anyone get paid here? Is it all volunteer?
One person is able to make a living, and that is the person who sells the advertising. Okay, now it's not advertising; it's underwriting. It's underwriting, you could call it that, or sponsorship is what we call it. And we discovered that that's not something selling, going out to merchants and getting them to come up with $350 to be on for a year, because that's how it works here. You get in the automation, and at the end of the show, people will hear that there are going to be 4 ads, if you like. They're not exactly advertisements. There's just information about
I understand.
These
We're
people.
Familiar with the TV
right. The rules
station,
are the same, I think, and
they get a commission. The salesperson.
So the salesperson gets a commission,
okay.
And that works. That works.
That's great, and that's good for us to know too. I sometimes wish I could do it with our public access channel, because the thing I dislike the most is asking people for money. I'm not good at that when it comes to Trek Across Maine sponsors.
And it's also hard to make it work, because the merchants who support the WRFR, they're getting a really good deal on this, okay? Yeah. They're supporting us, they want to help the station, but they also, it's money well spent from purely advertising public relations point of view. they are used to salesmen, people who are trying to sell them advertising. Those people are persistent. You know, they don't just send them an email and you never hear from them again. They come by, they do. So if you can't move in that way, you're not likely to get, you know, they'll forget you. So. Right. So we needed to have somebody who would be, I mean, he doesn't twist people's arms, but
a presence.
But he's a presence, exactly, and serving, you know, servicing those accounts. That's not something that it'd be hard to find a volunteer.
I understand, but they are basically commission-based salespeople. So if they don't sell, you don't have to pay them or whatever.
Exactly.
But like you must have ongoing expenses. I mean, there's a lot of electricity, equipment maintenance. Yes. And do you have to pay like rights to ASCAP and BMI?
Yep, we do.
So how much? Typically, you have to
I can't remember, but it's not a huge amount. I think it costs a couple $1,000s a year for all the rights. Okay, roughly.
Yeah.
And it's a little complicated, kind of a nuisance, but we pay those. And there's a fee also for streaming, and we're streaming. So there are various things. And you know, we keep warm. We have electricity. But in the end, the money has not been a problem.
Oh, that's great.
Our sponsors. You know, we get enough money from them that we don't do on-air solicitations. We would if we wanted, but we don't need to because our sponsors take care of us.
Well, that's great, Joe. We're getting close to the end of the TV portion of our interview.
Yes.
And
you see, Ned is much more professional than I am.
Well, it's just that I program our station in half-hour increments, so this is one of our half-hour slots that I'm trying to work.
Good.
So, do you have any, you know, some like high points of advice that you could give us in Belfast? Some final wisdom as we, you know, look at this.
I think that the most important thing is the governance and the rules that you set, and ensuring that there really is going to be freedom, but at the same time enough oversight that people don't start abusing it and insulting people and causing difficulty. I think there's a tendency for the people who do the shows to think that they should be the ones who run the station, and I don't think that that's necessarily true. I don't know just how it will be done in Belfast. You have to be a little careful with nonprofits because, you know, control changes, there's can be a lot of neglect and so forth. Maybe the city could come up with a way to appoint a board that would be independent, to have a kind of constitution for it that would say, we're going to appoint people from the community, we're going to have a good representation of the sorts of people who live in Belfast, and we're going to tell them, look, you do this, the city council is not going to be second guessing your choices. You're going to do this, and as long as you follow the basic constitution that we set out, we're not going to interfere. We're not, because one of the problems is if there's somebody who's doing a talk show who is saying things that members of the city council don't want to hear, then there is going to be pressure. You have to have a kind of firewall there.
I understand. I mean, if the whole idea is free speech, oftentimes that speech may be unpopular with people, and that needs to be protected. I think that's kind of a fundamental thing of public access television, too.
Yes.
So I've been speaking with Joe Steinberger, who's the founder of WRFR, and has been involved by providing the space and everything. So I really am grateful for you taking the time. And I want to remind viewers that on March 25th at 6:30 at the Boathouse in Belfast, we're going to have a sort of a beginning meeting where we start to envision our own local low-power station in Belfast. And Joe will be there. He'll be, I'm sure, happy to talk with you folks about his experiences and share some of his wisdom. And so I look forward to that.
And thank you very much, Ned Leitner, for coming and being here at WRFR and answering our questions. I want to thank the people who've been listening for listening. We've got 15 seconds to go till we're going to hear what that automation sounds like. And thank you very much, Ned. It's been a pleasure.